We're talking to sustainability professional Dr. Rebecca Koss. Rebecca, welcome to The Informer. I've always wanted to know, in the eyes of a professional, what does sustainability mean and how far does it reach in its impact?
Sustainability means different things to different people. For myself, sustainability includes not just the natural environment, it includes culture, people, economics, the way that we live, all incorporated under the umbrella of sustainability. And I believe that many people try and be sustainable in their own way by small acts, whether it's taking their own bags to the supermarket, using their reusable coffee cups, using a bike to get to work and back instead of the car. So for me,
recycling their fast fashion clothes.
Absolutely, into the circular economy.
Correct.
So sustainability can take on so many different lenses and approaches to improving the way that we live, not just for us, but also for future generations.
Rebecca, why have we been so slow to look at what our first Australians did for thousands of years? Why haven't we looked to them to lead us to go forward with our sustainability approach? They managed to live in harmony. Why can't we? Why are we the ultimate wasters or dumpers of just about everything?
I think
we even dump our space junk in the ether and wait for it to crash.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And I think it really stems from our perhaps European background of how we treat life in silos. We treat economics in a silo, we treat nature in a silo, and we treat people, culture, and our health and well-being in another silo. And we don't actually integrate those silos at all. Whereas we look to the traditional owners, and I'm not a traditional owner and I don't want to speak on their behalf at all, but certainly from listening to them, observing them, being welcomed onto country by elders and just listening, they actually see everything in a very integrated, highly connected way. They understand that the natural environment is intrinsic to their health and well-being and the economics of their communities.
Yeah, but it's all about balance.
Absolutely, definitely about balance. And I think this siloed approach that we learn in school and then in high school, and then if we go on to tertiary education, we look at the degrees. You do a humanities degree, or you do a science degree, or you do an economics degree, or a finance degree, or a law degree. They're all separated. We don't actually integrate thought and thinking across these domains. And that's why we're actually not good at creating that balance and understanding the different perspectives on creating a better sustainable outcome for our planet.
We don't have a panoramic lens. We only see it through the immediate focus of our influence and our craft, I suppose. That's a very interesting perspective to offer. You've done some terrific work and you've been acknowledged both internationally and nationally. That must be enormously rewarding, but are we getting the messages across to local councils, to local government, to state government, and ultimately, I suppose, to the federal government?
I think the messages are starting to be heard. Certainly we see within Victoria, with the local governments and state governments, many of them are passing new policies, new legislations to improve the sustainable outcomes of their local communities or at a statewide level. And certainly there's been a lot of action in that area over the past, say, 5 to 6 years. Within the federal
We've been slow to getting more awake, haven't we?
Yes, absolutely. And certainly you can see the push is coming from younger generations. And also,
that's encouraging.
It is very encouraging, but also if we put a business lens on this as well, we're seeing shareholder interest in investment in companies, renewables, those that can actually highlight what their carbon emissions are, that they're moving towards carbon neutrality. So I think we're seeing a push both within not only our communities, but also from business as well, to much more sustainable alternatives. There is still a lot of work to be done yet, but I think it's starting to be soaked within our psyche to create that change. I'm hopeful for the future that change will occur, even if it's just slow at the moment.
Let's talk about the moment. We're going through this global pandemic. It's challenging people at so many different levels. The anxiety factor, just overwhelms some people. Sustainability is getting pushed a little bit to the side because, as you said, that lens at the moment is survival. It's about getting through this immediate crisis. Is there a better way to take the narrative forward?
I think there is, and I've noticed that within a crisis situation, we can have usually two approaches, and unfortunately they are in binary opposition. We have a knee-jerk reaction to immediate needs, which I completely understand, but there's also an opportunity to take a step back, take a deep breath and see what is going on with that panoramic lens that you just mentioned. And I think with the COVID-19 crisis, it is a sustainability crisis in my view, for the rationale that the reason that we have COVID is because it's from animal transmission through wildlife trade. If we didn't have the wildlife trade, then this virus would not be introduced into the human population and therefore
So how do we change that cultural attitude that's been there for hundreds of years?
Absolutely.
And we can expect to draw a line across that. That's very hard to do.
100%. We have to understand from a cultural perspective, it's about having the open conversations and dialogue to understand from them why do they eat the meat from the wildlife trade? What is the intrinsic cultural need to eat that sort of meat? So we can actually start learning from them, but also educating them that actually this is what one of the unfortunate risks that is associated with doing that. So I think, again, with any sort of cultural elements, you need to have open discussions, collaboration, and sometimes it does take time to build the trust to create the change. And that's part of sustainability as well, is actually working together to create longer term outcomes.
Have you seen that trust build up over the last few years? You've travelled the world, you've worked in a number of different jurisdictions and nations, and you understand international conversation.
Yes.
Are they listening? Are they open to conversation, or are we the only ones passing the ball?
Yeah, I think what I have found is that everyone is always open to conversations. Each person is programmed in our own way, the way that we're brought up, the way that we educate, we're programmed. And it's about breaking down our own programming to build that trust, to be open to those new ideas potentially.
Rebecca, we're not open source, we're hardwired, we're resistant to change.
We are resistant to change, and so it takes work. That's the challenge for us, is actually to break down our programming, to step into the abyss, to learn about the unknown, to create that change.
Rebecca, in the sphere of sustainability, in this field that is so big and so complicated, do we have people who are making a difference, who are the sort of leaders who are inspiring us to do things that we may not necessarily understand or want to do, for example?
Absolutely. We know some of the more famous ones, Greta Thunberg, for example. Everyone knows Greta. And how she has rallied together and inspired so many people across...
That youth movement has really shaken the world, hasn't it?
Absolutely. Across countries, across genders, across cultures, to really get up and speak their minds about climate action and climate change. We have Boyan Slat, who is from the Netherlands, and as a teenager designed systems and machines.
Aerospace engineer, that's right.
Correct, to clean up the ocean of plastics. I mean, that's really entrepreneurial, in my opinion. But some of
to be able to do it and to make money out of it again, that's a win-win.
100%, and he's had such huge sponsorship from some major companies as well to assist him along the way.
So he's the man responsible for this magnificent ocean cleanup, huh?
That's right, absolutely. Wow. But also, there are many leaders across the world who are not in the papers, who may not have that level of famous media gravitas. And I work with so many fabulous sustainability leaders. For example, Bruno Monteferri in Peru, who's working very hard to protect a lot of the coastline and important surf breaks across Peru from not only pollution, but from overdevelopment. There's Maria Sole Bianca, who's in Italy, who is educating the Italian communities about the importance of looking after our oceans. Grace Mwara in Kenya, in Africa, who is working with various communities about sustainability. So there are many people behind the scenes whose actions are perhaps louder than words. And the element about sustainability, it's long term. It's not something that you dive into quickly and you come out and something's going to change.
Lifelong.
It's a lifelong passion, it's lifelong commitment to help shape, create change with people, not just by yourself. And that's where the true leadership stems from.